Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On this episode, I talk with Shelley Looney, who is the head coach at Lindenwood University and also an Olympic gold medalist. We discuss her building multiple girls hockey programs, playing on the U.S. national team, and of course, the Lindenwood women's hockey program. This was a fun conversation with Shelley, and I hope you enjoy it. Before we get to our guest, if you enjoyed this episode and want us to keep making more of them, please share it with teammates and friends. You can also subscribe, like, follow, and even better, it would be great if you would leave us a review. Now, let's drop the puck and get to the show. I'm very excited to have on the Champs App podcast, Shelley Looney, who is the head coach of the Lindenwood Lions women's hockey program. Originally from Brownstown, Michigan, which is in the Detroit area. She spent 4 years at Northeastern, averaging 1.2 points per game. She also played 14 seasons with the U.S. women's national team, including 2 Olympic Games and scoring the game-winning goal in the 1998 Nagano Games. And then afterwards, she moved to coaching, holding a variety of coaching roles, including running the Buffalo Bison's girls program, and for the last 2 years has been the head coach with the Lindenwood University women's hockey program. Welcome to the podcast, Shelley.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
Great to have you. So as we do all our guests, why don't you just run us through your hockey history, starting out in Brownstown, Michigan?
Well, funny story how I got started was I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, and he was 4. My parents knew nothing about hockey. But they had friends that had sons in hockey, so they decided to get my brother into it. And he lasted like a half a year. He'd rather stay home and watch cartoons than get up and go to the rink. So halfway through the season, I've been tagging along, and I just asked if I could take his spot.
Oh, wow.
And my parents didn't know. They had to go ask the coaches because girls really didn't play back then. So yeah. He said, we don't think there's a rule, so yeah, she can come right out and play. So that's how I got started on skates.
How old were you at that time?
I was 6.
6. Okay, yeah. So you started really young. And
yeah.
Usually we've heard stories of the older brothers bringing the younger sister out and sometimes putting them in nets, but that didn't happen to you.
No. My brother tried to play another year after that, but it wasn't his game, so...
Gotcha. And so tell us, how you actually developed into such a great player, in Michigan.
Well, I mean, I did play with the boys because there were no girls teams back then in the downriver area of Michigan. So I played until I was 12, and then this one woman put a girls team together, and I was like, oh, that'll be fun. And I went over there, and I was like, unfortunately, they weren't as skilled at that point.
Not as experienced at the time.
Yeah, I played longer. So anyways, I went back to boys, and I played goalie for a year.
And what was that like?
I mean, I went to camp, I did it all summer, and I wasn't terrible, but they were like, you're such a nice skater. Like, you should be skating out, but my parents didn't want me to play checking. So,
okay.
But the competition in the girls at that first year was so bad. So anyways, they went back and they went and recruited some other girls that play boys hockey. And we put a female team together when I was 14. So.
Okay. And were you playing other sports while you were growing up? Because if you're going to play goalie, you got to be pretty athletic.
I played everything. Basketball, softball, volleyball. I tried soccer, ran cross country one year. Just I did have a little bit of everything. And my parents were so amazing to drag me from place to place. And, I would be running from hockey to high school sports to, back to hockey. And so without their support, it wouldn't have never happened. So.
Gotcha. And what was the key to your development? Was it you were just naturally motivated? Was it playing just against boys at such a young age, so you were pretty competitive? Was it just great coaching? What was it that got you to be, truly elite?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I had the same coach from when I started for 7 years, and he was amazing. You get a hat trick, you get a pat on the back, but if you get a playmaker, you get a hot dog and a Coke. You know what I mean? He really enforced the team concept. So, plus, school was always challenging to me. I have, a form of dyslexia. So in sports, I could excel when in school I was, constantly just trying to get it done. So I think that made me feel better because I was excelling in something other than, because school was not excelling, let's say.
Yeah. So actually, you know, I learned about you having some form of dyslexia prior to this conversation. I'm wondering, how did that help you with your hockey?
Well, I just think it gave me pride to be good at something. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't, I'm just trying to be average in school, right? So, but when I found I was a little bit more than average in sports, it just made me want to do it all the time and, get that reap of benefit of prospering.
Gotcha. And so you're pretty famous for scoring the gold medal goal in the Olympics, and we'll get back to that in a second. But are you more famous for that or being an international recording artist?
Oh, yeah.
So you hit the Billboard 100 for a letter
did.
you wrote there called "Thank You Canada," which if folks watch the movie Argo, they would know that's the basics of the letter.
You did your homework. Yeah.
So my first question is, do you have a copy of that 45 single somewhere in your house?
I do.
Okay, because I just bought one yesterday on eBay, so then I'm going to have to get you to sign one for me.
Okay.
And maybe just tell that story, because especially because as you mentioned, for someone who's dyslexic to write a letter that hits the Billboard 100,
I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. Okay, this is how it really happened. 2 doors down was a DJ. This guy named Johnny Williams. He was a DJ in Detroit, and so when the whole thing happened, he sat down and was like, "I want to do something to thank Canada." So, and he knew I played hockey and I was down the street and I'm a cute little blonde girl, so he came down and asked my parents if it would be okay if I recorded this record. And so he wrote it and I recorded it. So.
We will cut that part out of this part out of the
No, that's good. I don't have a brother named Bill that was in the Army, but it sounded good.
All right.
I mean, it's just ironic, years later, I'm always battling Canada in hockey, although I thanked them when I was 8. So
yeah, that's a great story. Okay, great. So tell us how you ended up getting recruited by Northeastern University.
We found out there was camps out east. So I went to a couple of the Harvard camp and some other camps just to find out what is really hockey all about in college. Because back then it was, I'm in the Midwest. I don't hear anything about it. So we went out there a couple times, and then I tried out for the national team. The first national team was in 1990. So I was a senior in high school. So I made it to the final tryouts. It was at Northeastern. The coach was Don McLeod, who was the coach at Northeastern. So anyways, I tried out there. I didn't make it, but obviously he liked something that I was performing, and that's how I got, I did get recruited to the top 3 schools that were that was UNH, Providence, and Northeastern. And those were the only 3 that gave some scholarship money. So
right, yeah.
I got waitlisted for the other 2, so I went to Northeastern.
Again, it makes your decision easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a test.
So you are a prolific scorer. 1.2 points per game in college, that's pretty good. So how do you score goals? And I don't mean you personally. I mean, what is it that makes a great goal scorer? What is it that made you a great scorer? And what is it that you would advise?
I'll be very honest. If I were to sum up my play, I was good at mostly everything, but I wasn't great at anything except my effort. So most of my goals were those scrappy goals in front of the net that you have to work hard for, and you get knocked down and you get back up. So that's, my coach was like, I would never tell you to go through a wall because you would actually do it without any questions. That was just my mentality of how I play hockey. So
I gotcha. And have you ever visited the Northeastern University Sports Hall of Fame, or Hockey Hall of Fame? Because I believe you're in there somewhere.
I did. I was inducted. You're supposed to wait 5 years, but I was inducted in 98, 99, right after the Olympics, which was such an honor. But they said they'll make an exception.
So tell us about, playing for the national team. I've spoken to a few folks who have made the team, a few folks who almost made the team. What I hear a lot is there's a lot of stress involved. Was it stressful for you?
Well, yeah, not making the first team and having some friends that made that team in 90, that was just my goal. I already knew I was going to college because that was the first goal I had. And then after I went, made it into the college ranks, my second goal was to make the national team. So did I think I was going to do it right away? No, but I think my tenacity and the way I play, it's hard not to see me out there, I guess. So it's just that desire. And even if you don't make it, like just the opportunity to get that chance, because you want to be able to say you put in everything you could, when you get that chance. So that's what I tell my kids. I'm like, don't say like shoulda, woulda, coulda, like just put it out on the line and see what happens. So.
Right. And so let's jump now up to the 98 Olympics. So do you remember anything from that gold medal game that stood out to you? Maybe scoring an important goal?
Well, it's funny. We had 2 power play systems, and penalty against Canada, actually, she hit me. So I was already on the ice. So I came off, and he put out my unit because I was really with this other 2 groups where I would be in the corner.
Yeah.
But he put Cammie out there, which obviously she was our captain.
Cammie Granato, for folks
yes, Cammie Granato.
For whatever reason may not know who you're talking about.
You should read up on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when her power play went to go out, he told me to go take her spot, and I was looking at him like, okay, what? And she's like, go stand in front of the net and like draw them to you, so we can create opportunities. I was like, oh, okay. And then the puck came down and I swung at it.
So what was really impressive to me about that goal was that all 5 players on the power play touched the puck, right? It was on the half wall, went back to the right D, went down low to the other forward below the goal line, out to the left D, and then made it to you, right? So, I mean, just tell us about the teamwork involved in that. And obviously that was probably something that you've worked on.
Yeah, we definitely worked on it a lot. I think that, getting Coach Smith to coach the national team those couple of years beforehand really helped us. It brought, he treated us like hockey players, not female hockey players. So that was really helpful. And we learned about puck movement, and that's how you can't skate faster than the puck. So moving the puck is the best option to create opportunities.
Gotcha. And so like I mentioned to you, I've watched that play in detail. I don't know if you're aware, but the 2D for Canada, they had a lefty playing the right side and a righty playing the left side. Now, in hindsight, if they had a righty on the right side, which is where you were just next to the net, do you think their stick would have been a little bit closer to you and they could have covered you better? And then would you have when you coach now, would you ever have a lefty on the right D and a righty on the lefty now?
That's a good question, but I think what happened was our first goal was a power play goal, and we did it out of the corner.
Yeah.
So I think they were worried about coming out of the corner. But then when we moved it up top, we had them starting to run around. And then Sandra White just was amazing. She just passed it right down into my area. So I never even noticed that, but that was a good observation. I just closed my eyes and hoped for the best. That's what I did.
All they remember is that, game-winning goal, the GWG next to your name. So what was that moment like when you saw Sandra White score the empty netter and you were on the bench? How did that feel?
I mean, when you say, oh, it's a dream come true, but it's just so hard to put into words what that feeling was like. We were such a close-knit team, and we knew our roles. We knew what we had to do. Like, everybody had a role, and we took pride in our roles. So there was no animosity or anything amongst the team or anything like that. We just, it was all brand new to us, and we were playing hockey on the biggest stage that you can imagine. So.
Nice. So, the next obvious question is, where do you keep your gold medal?
Oh, it's like in my side dresser.
Okay. It's at home somewhere.
It's really sad. I just moved. I just bought a house, so I'm working on putting up stuff as I am back here.
All right. So how were you able to play for the national team for so many years, 14 years? I mean, you kept playing, we're talking about 98, but you kept playing until 2005. How were you so resilient and have such a great longevity?
Oh, my body was definitely falling apart, but it was just funny because after 98, when we were all just, celebrating, our coach at one point was like, half of you guys won't be here, because you're going to be too old. And we looked at him and we were like, we just got here. We're not going anywhere. And, he thought that the talent was out there already, like, but hockey was just growing at that time. So there was more than half of us on the team. But, I just couldn't give up the game unless I knew I needed to.
Kicking in.
I got cut before the 2006 games. It wasn't easy, but at the same time, I'm like, well, my time is up, like pass the torch. So.
And you got involved, with the national team as a coach. So you helped out on the boys side. You've also obviously helped out on the girls side. I believe you coached the under 18 women's team or girls team. So tell us what it's like to kind of, work at the national level and scouting and developing and recruiting these players.
Well, it's pretty interesting because when I did coach the U18s, it was a while ago. So they still might have heard my name before. But younger kids nowadays don't have an idea what has happened before them. Like they just think that girls hockey happens all the time and it's everywhere. So when we're at a camp or something and someone, coach will ask, who knows who Cami Granato is? And like half of the group might raise their hand and we're like, so we're going to educate you on the history of women's ice hockey, so we like to share that with them. I have medals to share. They're not just to sit in a drawer. Like I bring them out as much as I can for people to have that opportunity. I remember when I saw my first gold medal, it was for rowing, a friend of mine had, but I was like, I want one of these. So yeah. But
and you still played, I believe, 1 year professionally with the Buffalo Buttes, and that's what brought you to Buffalo?
No. So
okay.
I got you.
All right.
I was in New Jersey for almost 10 years. I ran the girls program of the New Jersey Colonials.
Okay.
After I was retired / cut from the national team. So I went down there for a bit and then I took a year off of coaching. And then all of a sudden they were building that new arena downtown in Buffalo, next to the
Pagula Ice Center, Pagula Arena.
So
yes.
I went down there, spoke with them. I was working part-time for them because they weren't up and running, but then the Bisons came to me, the president, Barney Welsh, and he's like, listen, I might have you for a year, I might have you for 3 years, but I'd love to just have you. And I was like the first female, but first person to have a hockey director job that they actually paid, because everybody else is volunteer up there,
Yeah.
So I was honored for that, and I grew them pretty quickly.
You grew the girls program from 3 to 18s. So.
Yeah, I did the same thing in New Jersey, so I had a record.
So what is the playbook? So I'm actually very curious about this. What's the playbook? How do you start with the top of the funnel and getting girls in at the very young ages? What USA Hockey now has is Give Hockey a Try. What were you doing to fill the top of the funnel of players?
I mean, people have asked me that, and fortunate for me, but I have a history, and people might believe that I know what I'm talking about. So, but I think what happens is, like, if you look at most programs, they just try to get the best, right? So they're building their pyramid from the top down, when I'm like, no, you have to have a foundation. Right. So we had, Learn to Skate for girls. They were skating with the boys my first year in New Jersey. Well, then all of a sudden, 10 became 20 and 20 became 30 and 30 became 50. So I'm like, no, now these girls have a place to start and feel comfortable. Not everybody. Some girls like to play with boys, but they also like to hang out with their friends. So it's more of a social thing at first. Yep. And then do they get that bite? You know what I mean? Do they get that feel of competition where they, we would do drills just to have them touch each other. You know what I mean? Because girls, they're supposed to be prim and proper, but hockey is about, physical contact sport. Yeah. So we would do stuff like that, and then they started to love it, and it just kind of grew that way. So I think every time you got to start from the bottom up. That's my motto, I guess.
And one of the keys to that is also coaching. And as great a coach as you are, if there's 8 teams, you can't coach all 8 teams. So what were you doing to help develop coaches?
Yeah, we would have meetings, and then I would go out on their practices and show them how I would run a practice and what the details that I kind of instill in my team. And it was really nice because, especially on the girls' side, because I did the boys too in Buffalo, but on the girls' side, the coaches from all teams started working together and like changing ideas. And so I would try to go out there and watch their practice and then give them some advice. And so, yeah.
And how was ice time? Like, were you able to get enough ice time for the girls? Because typically, you know, the AAA boys tend to get priority over the girls. You know, were you
Well,
able to get your own ice time or your own rink?
as the hockey director, I made the ice schedule. So
Oh, there you go.
it was very fair. So, very fair.
Lesson number one, become the director and control the schedule. There you go.
Exactly.
All right.
No, I just try to have girls on one day, so then like young kids could watch the next age group and the next age group could watch them, so they can inspire to be like that's playing after them. So
Gotcha. So clearly your Northeastern University education is paying off with you being very strategic about planning all these things out.
I'm
You know,
street smart.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. So, you know, we've had Lindsey Berman on the podcast, Hillary Witt. Why is Northeastern such a hockey factory for coaches?
Yeah, I mean, Laura Schuler, who was my roommate in college, she played on the Canadian national team forever. And then she ended up coaching there. So I think it just goes with the support that you're getting from your athletic department in your school. I think that they recruited players that love the game and didn't want to give it up, so I think of.
So I didn't ask you this earlier, but I should have, is why did you want to become a coach? Like, what was it inside you that said, hey, I still want to stay with the game?
So when I was released from the team, I took some time off, but I went on interviews for like pharmaceutical companies and different things. Like, some of my teammates were in that field and they're like, Shelley, you'll be fine. It's about, being personable and communication. And so I did that. And then I was like, I'm not sure if I want to move. They actually offered me a job in Buffalo.
Ironically.
And I said, I am never living there. So, that's when New Jersey Colonials reached out to me about their program was doing really well, and then it dipped. They only had 3.5 teams, and so they brought me in, and I grew them to 9 or 10.
So, but did you always want to like either give back or want to play a role in developing girls hockey?
Well, I think, as a player, you make money on the side working camps, in the summer and stuff. So you get your feel for that. But it's not even just girls. Like I would say my expertise when I was working camps was my skating, right? So the pride in that. And then, watching these kids try to do these little things that, took me a while to do too, but
yeah.
When I get it, they're like so proud of themselves, and it's just great to see the growth from year to year. So.
Gotcha. Okay, one last question before we start getting into you moving over to Lindenwood, which is looking back on your playing days and your development. What would you either tell your younger self? What advice would you give yourself, or what would you do differently?
I honestly would just tell myself to have confidence. I think young girls lack confidence more than anything. I try to tell my players, like, I'm putting you in a position to excel, not fail, right? So, but I always doubted myself, it's just that thing. You want to be the best. You want to be the best. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? I think it goes back to my motto of like, enjoy the journey. Like, it's a journey. It's not a race, right? So just enjoy not only the game, but the people that you meet and the experiences that you develop, and, learning how to work with others.
Gotcha. All right. So what made you want to then move over to Division I after, coaching girls hockey for so many years? You decided to move west.
I did a dabble, I put my name out there for certain jobs, but I haven't really had a background. Like I was assistant coach for UVM.
Yeah, for 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I didn't have anything since then. I mean, I've coached the world national team for the World University games. So I've done international and stuff. And then I coached the Buttes for the first time in Buffalo. Was after.
Yeah.
I started I almost gave up, to be honest with you, about searching a job because I don't think I could be an assistant just for anybody. It would have to be I have some background and I have some things to say, so it would have been assistant coach. But I was coming back from a USA Hockey meeting, and one of the friend of mine, Sarah Fraser Hood, is an assistant athletic director, and she goes, "Hey, would you ever be interested in Lindenwood?" And I was like, I don't know, maybe. She's like, "Well, can I pass your name off to the athletic director?" And I said, "Absolutely." And we got on the plane, and when I got off, I had a voice message from him.
Nice.
Yeah, so I went down one day, and campus is gorgeous, and met with a bunch of the staff, and the next week I flew back down to sign papers.
Yeah, and from what I can tell, this happened pretty quickly.
Very.
They were already building your new arena, the Centene Community Ice Center, which I believe you sometimes let the St. Louis Blues practice there.
Oh yeah, they're there all the time.
Yeah. So maybe just talk about the facilities at Lindenwood, and especially like the big upgrades that happened a couple of years ago.
I know, I've only been here a year and a half. So when I first got here, the rink wasn't even done yet, but they walked me around and give me a tour of what it's going to look like. So when the girls came back from summer, we had to skate at their old rink, it's like 30 miles from campus. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I never would have taken this job if they were still skating out there. Just because, it's night and day. And it's just over the river. It's right by school. The facility is top notch. It has 3 alt rinks, year round, and then they have a 4th one that's outside. The Blues practice there every day. We have our own whole section that's brand new locker room and everything. And those things count about recruiting. It matters, So we still got some more work to do, but it's 100% better than what they were working with before. And I think, St. Louis is starting to be a hotbed for hockey. They've been developing some good male players, so let's develop some good female players.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on the boys' side. There's so many first-round draft picks from who are sons of the alumni from St. Louis.
I know. The alumni skate here too, so they got their own locker room and everything.
So, and for folks that don't know, you guys are in St. Charles, which is just northwest of St. Louis. So, has the St. Louis Blues winning the cup a couple of years ago, have you seen an impact of interest and growing the interest in the game in St. Louis?
Absolutely. When I first got here, the opening to the rink, they brought the Stanley Cup in, they brought the Blues guys in. So, and it was just the feeling of excitement around the whole city. So I think them winning then is a perfect time for when I came in. Everybody knew. They're like, oh, they won the Stanley Cup. Now we have Olympic gold medalists. So let's work together on this and grow the sport. So
that's perfect. So so let's talk about that transition. So what's the difference between like youth or girls hockey and college hockey, both from a skills and development standpoint and from a coaching perspective?
Because I think, other than when you're getting to like 18, 19 in youth, I'm all about skill development, because and everybody's like, oh, what system did you work with, with the kids? And I'm like, systems, we're skating and learning how to read the game. Like, there's no systems. Like, there's ideas. Like, I don't like to use systems for youth hockey at all. Now, coming to college, there are systems. You do a lot of scouting on who you're going to be playing, and you get to have that kind of like, can I outcoach the other team type of thing, or, figure out ways to create opportunities for our players with the way we play. So, and it's nice to not just do skills. It's nice to actually coach on it.
So, you're still only in your second year. So, you don't have a full 4 years of players that you've recruited yourself. So how do you trade off, skill development or development versus winning, given that you're kind of in transition with the program?
1 or 2 times a week, we'll have like a half an hour skills session before practice starts. So we get the skills in, and then in the spring, that's all we're gonna do is like skills. So then, and they'll be working out at the gym as well. But so those are the things. And then once, I mean, we don't get much time on the ice before we start. You know, we're technically practicing maybe 4 or 5 days before we have to go play Wisconsin. So it's a lot of video. So we know we're on the same page. So.
Gotcha. And how do you divide responsibilities with yourself? Your two assistants, Krista Kehoe, Mike Venezia, if I'm pronouncing his name properly.
Yeah.
So, how do you divide responsibilities between the three of you,
So
both
I've
on the
known-
ice and recruiting wise?
Yeah, I've known Coach Kehoe for a really long time. I mean, I think I was one of the evaluators for USA Hockey when she was like a youth player out in California. So I've known her for a long time, but she's been with me now at least 2 years, and she's a go-getter, and I don't have to say anything twice. She's considered our recruiting coordinator. So, and then when Mike came in, you know, he used to recruit just him, you know, at a D3 level, he did everything. So we kind of split up the map. And so they each have certain areas, but so I let them go and take care of that stuff. And then we have meetings like once a week just to go over our lists and watch videos, because we're on the road right now. So
yeah,
we watch a lot of video.
Okay. And then do you divide between on ice stuff between the forwards, the D and the goaltender, special teams? How does that work?
Yeah. So Coach Kehoe does the forwards, and Coach Mike does the defensemen. So we'll sometimes split like 15-20 minutes before practice starts, so they can just do some skill work on each end. And that's what they run on the bench as well. And I'm there just, you know, if I want to change, I just kind of tell them and they run with it. Or if they have a question, I'll, you know, who do you want on the power play or whatnot? Look at me and I'll just tell them what I think. But I trust both of them. So unless I want to change something up, it's a nice role. You know, you don't have to question it. Don't have to be like, oh my God, who are they putting out? You know what I mean? Or so they're great to work with. So in practice, we kind of just sit down and create practice, and it might just be my ideas. It might be their ideas. Some days I let them run the whole thing. I'm like, you guys got practice today. So it's good for them to be able to have that situation, especially if they want to keep going and maybe run a program themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you like during the game on the bench? Are you nice and calm and quiet, or are you letting folks know what you think?
No, so when I first started coaching, I might have spoke to the refs a lot. I probably scared a lot of them, actually, because they knew who I was and they were females, so they were like, "Oh God,
A little intimidated, yeah.
at me." Like,
Yeah.
But I've learned that that's not my style. I'm more, I mean, I'll speak to my team, but I don't. When my assistants yell at the ref, I actually look at them and be like, "What are you doing?" Like, if anybody's gonna yell at the ref, it's gonna be me. So.
Gotcha. All right, so talk about the conference that you're in. I believe it's the CHA. I'm not as familiar with how that works, and I also believe that just during these COVID times, you've also been playing some non-Division I teams. Am I correct in that? So,
Oh, we did not, unfortunately. No.
Okay. Okay.
There was two of our conference teams did play a Division III school. It wasn't us though.
Okay, but tell us about the CHA.
So I mean, we're in the best of both worlds here at Lindenwood, because our location is just south of Wisconsin, Minnesota, you know, the WCHA. But at the same time, it's a winnable conference. I'm not saying that the other ones aren't for.
There's some powerhouses in the WCHA that everybody's heard of.
There's some powerhouses in some other places. So I think this is a great avenue to make it to the championships, the tournament. And at the same time, all our non-conference games are against WCHA teams. So we have the best of both worlds. So we're playing Wisconsin, we're playing Mankato, St. Cloud. We have Ohio on our list next year. We have Clarkson's coming to us. Like, we play all the top 10 schools to get us prepared to win this, the CHA. I mean, it's winnable for anybody in the league. So
Gotcha.
Position to be in.
Gotcha. And this year obviously has been a bit of a challenging year for you. On top of COVID, correct me if I'm wrong, you've had some pretty serious injuries, especially in the net. Maybe you could just talk about the challenges of this COVID season.
Yeah, last year we lost right at the end. We lost our number one goalie, and she was out pretty much for the whole year. So we only had two. Thank God we had one transfer in halfway, or we would only had one goalie. So I think I might be the only team that ever played NCAA game with a non-goalie playing goalie. So that was interesting. But I think COVID's challenging, but at the same time, our kids are so dedicated. Like, we had a little bit of it, at the beginning in September, but ever since then, they've really stuck to being true to themselves and to the team. So we don't go outside our little bubble. They don't go out. They don't, they're doing the right things. Because I said, if one person doesn't want to do it, it's going to ruin it for everybody else. So, and I'm so blessed to have great kids. I mean, they just like each other, so that's nice to have too.
Gotcha. And kind of what's your plan over the coming years? Like, well, you're obviously how do you plan, especially given what you described before of your time in Buffalo. So what is kind of the plan for the team over the coming years?
So, I mean, in COVID, because this year doesn't count as eligibility, it's changed the landscape for everybody, right? And actually, I think it kind of benefits us, because you might get a recruit that short-term recruit or a long-term recruit. So, some schools are asking kids to wait out another year, and they don't want to. So we're going to benefit from those opportunities if kids want to, look somewhere else. But when I first got here, they lost like the top 2 or 3 forwards that they had, so it was, if we would have had them, I mean, they were the top scorers. So, I mean, we're going to, we've done a really good job recruiting for next class. And then, one of my seniors, she was our leading scorer. She, broke her leg couple 4 weeks ago. So, she might come back and do our senior year over again. So
Gotcha.
I just know I love the kids who we have, but I also know that my job is to win games, and our job is to recruit kids that are better than what we have.
What, generally speaking, when coaches are recruiting, what do you think that they look for folks who want to come to the CHA?
I mean, it's funny because I try to tell my kids, and I tell even when I was working at the youth level, they're like, I'm as good as her. I'm like, but she's on the 4th line. Why do they want to replace a 4th liner? Like, how are they going to get better replacing a 4th line player? Like, all coaches try to replace their first or second line because that'll just make their team stronger, right? So that's a challenge for kids to understand. But I mean, if I don't win games, then I don't have a job.
So when coaches go to like showcases or tournaments or development camps, what is it that really stands out? What is that first or second liner that they're looking for?
Well, I think for me personally, there's 2 things that I think go hand in hand, and you gotta have hockey knowledge, like hockey sense, but you also gotta be able to get around the ice.
So skating.
Yeah, skating 100%, because the women's game is all about skating. It's not about how hard you can hit someone. It's about understanding the game, being able to move the puck, but also move your feet. So that's fine.
Gotcha. So what advice would you have for players or parents who are, just entering, the recruiting phase of things, or, grade 10s or grade 11s now? Obviously the recruiting blackout's been delayed until I think May 31st, something like that.
As of now, yes.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to them as they kind of deal with these stressful times and the uncertainty of who's coming back, who's not, how many openings are going to be?
I mean, ultimately, I always tell the kids, like, if you want to play college hockey, there is a spot. it might not be at the level or the school, but you will be able to have that experience because there's enough spots out there right now. You know, I also like, you know, I want to play Division I. I'm like, okay, but you'll be on the third or fourth line, so you won't really be playing. So are you going to be okay with that? Those are those questions like people forget to ask. Are you you know, I just want to be a part of the Gophers, and then, but do you play? Are you making an impact? Like, so for us here at Lindenwood, we tell our girls, like, we're recruiting kids to make an impact the moment they step into this, you know, program, because that's the way we're going to get better. So, but I mean, again, if you want to play college hockey, it might not be the right level you wanted or you dreamed about, but you still be able to have that opportunity and that experience, you know, and D3 or ACHA, like they're all out there. So, I mean, I would never want a kid to just give up just because she didn't make the Division I, you know, but they go on to 2 or, you know, go on to Division III and they have an amazing time and they get to play.
Yeah, and put them in a position to succeed and be happy with playing, right? So,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us about how folks can learn more about Lindenwood. Are you do you do hockey camps at Lindenwood?
Not yet. Obviously, I just started last year, and COVID hit. So they are bringing some showcases to the Centene rink, not me personally, but we'll be working them.
Yeah.
There are a couple girls showcases that are coming to town this summer, which is great. I think that's a no-brainer because we're right in the middle of, you know, the country. So you can get kids from both sides of the ocean. We're starting to do videos and different things that we'll like have on our page just to show more like about our program. It's all just a work in progress since I was.
And is there a questionnaire on your website that folks can kind of raise their hand and express an interest? Yeah,
there is on the athletic website. You can do a prospect. But we try to every kid that writes to us, you know, and right now, unfortunately, if they don't have video, it's kind of hard because we don't get to go out there and see them because of COVID. So most of the girls are sending videos weekly or monthly, or, you know what I mean? So, and we take the time to, we're not big enough time to like look at everybody. So yeah. And then we try to reply to everybody as well. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That just
I mean, not everybody can do it, but where we are right now, I think that's important so people understand that we're not just leading them; we're actually giving them the time of day. So.
And you guys are really good on social media. I know Instagram. You guys are constantly posting stuff. So where can folks find more about the program on either Twitter or Instagram? Do you know the handles? Yes,
Coach Keogh does all our graphics on those 2 pages. She's got her phone attached to her all the time. But yeah, I think so when we get a email, when they get written back, there's links on the bottom of our emails that will like show the rink or show the school, you know, give tours like that. So that's kind of nice to have too.
Gotcha. So anything else that I've missed that you want to share about the program?
Other than St. Louis or other great areas of St. Louis is outstanding. Hockey is amazing here, and today and sunny, so that's a positive thing in February. But ultimately, like I'm blessed to be having this opportunity. I'm always a big fan of underdogs and bringing them up and rising them to the top. So it might take some time, but I know that we have the right players in place now and the right players that are coming in, but we still for, you know, it's some 22s. And then look forward to the 23s.
Awesome. Shelley, hey, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Champ Chat podcast. This is great. It's been great hearing the story, your perspective, and your insights. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
I really want to thank Shelley for coming on the podcast. It was great to hear her stories about scoring the game-winning goal in the Olympics and her career helping develop the women's game. And remember, if you got something out of today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, follow, subscribe, and even better if you could leave us a review so we can keep sharing this important hockey information with folks just like you.